Many in Afghanistan are fearing for their lives and their futures. On Tuesday, the Taliban vowed to honor women's rights within their interpretations of Islamic law. Vivian, there already are disturbing reports of restrictions on women's freedom. So do you think the Taliban's going to keep this promise?
It remains to be seen. It doesn't seem like they're going to just flip a switch and kind of go back to the old ways. In many ways, the Taliban wants to sort of win over public opinion of their own in Afghanistan. And so a lot of times, and I've seen this in Iraq, I've seen this in a lot of other places with groups like ISIS, they kind of slow roll it. They wait until they've sort of established themselves before they really impose the strict rules that they adhere to. And so we'll see what happens. I don't think a lot of people have too much faith, though, that they're going to be completely different from the old iteration of the Taliban that we knew in 2001 or recently even.
So, Peter, is this the Taliban 2.0?
I'm very skeptical that they've changed. I mean, within the context of Islamic law is the modifier they use for everything, whether it's women's rights or independent media. Their understanding of Sharia law is quite different from most other Muslims. And that, it's really a Pashtun rural understanding of what women's role. Women might be able to work in a clinic that treats only female patients, or maybe teaching in schools for girls that are only up to the age of 12. And this is what we're going to see. And it's not going to be that different. Yes, they may have changed a little bit around the edges, but they may allow television because now they're pretty adept at propaganda. In the old days, of course, they banned television. So I don't see it. And one thing I think that we should be looking at, a lot of people were released from Bagram Air Force Base prison. Taliban prisoners, Al-Qaeda prisoners. These are huge force multipliers, not just the 5,000 that were released that Vivian mentioned as a result of the peace agreement. So, picking up on something that Peter Baker said, on 9/11, the split screen is going to be every jihadi group in the world that's managed to get to Afghanistan having this huge celebration. So, I mean, the stories and the pictures are not going to just fade away tomorrow.
The head of the Haqqani network is back there today. He's got a $5 million bounty on his head from the United States. He's walking through the streets of Kabul.
What sort of influence will the West have on the Taliban? Any at all?
A couple things. Definitely money. To the degree that the Taliban wants international recognition, there's a diplomatic lever. But to the degree that they want to be able to function as a government and actually run the country, they are going to need some continued influx of foreign capital. There just isn't enough capital sloshing around in the country, nor means to produce it to run the country. So a huge lever will be international aid, both government to government and international aid groups, and any commerce or business that the Taliban wants to do with other countries. That's really the main hammer that certainly the United States has. I mean, remember, we promised billions to the Afghan army. I mean, who's going to get that money now if it flows at all?
One really quick point to add to what they just said, Pete, is that today, on Friday, President Biden said that al-Qaeda is defeated in Afghanistan. I don't think anyone at this table believes that al-Qaeda is defeated. Quite the contrary. They just talked about the Haqqani network, which is linked to affiliate of al-Qaeda. This is going to be a major problem moving forward. And if they empower the Taliban or if they fight against the Taliban, we can wait and see about that. But it's going to be problematic for the Biden administration moving forward and administrations to come.
So what are the possibilities of a civil war?
There's been a civil war, Pete, in Afghanistan since 1978, even before the Soviets invaded. And we're just going to go into another iteration. It's like Back to the Future, because Ahmad Shah Massoud, the great commander who was fighting the Soviets and the Taliban, who was assassinated by al-Qaeda 2 days before 9/11, his son is now leading the resistance in Panjshir Valley, which is in northern Afghanistan, never taken by the Soviets, never taken by the Taliban. Amrullah Saleh, who's the elected vice president, is saying, I am the legitimate president now that Ghani's out of the country. And so we're just going to be in another big cycle, unfortunately.
So will we hear from President Biden again on this, do you think, briefly?
President Biden definitely is wanting to sort of manage expectations. I think he also wants to move away from it and sort of focus more on his agenda. Don't forget that he had this big infrastructure win in the middle of all of this going on. And so I think he would love to shift focus on that, to shift focus to COVID battle, the pandemic battle. But, he's going to have to answer to the questions. And especially the more and more chaotic the situation gets, he's going to want to explain it.
All right.